All right, we're back for part 2 of the 5 terrible habits that kill private money lenders deals. Now, in the first video, we talked about the first 5 habits. So those were loaning without collateral. Those were skipping the due diligence, which, I mean, we don't want to do that. Those are not using written contracts. Those are mixing business with family and friends, so loaning money to family, friends, or the entities of family and friends, and then failing to record the liens on the property. So we talked about those 5, but I actually have an additional 5 for you, for the people out there who are like, oh, that's so basic, I'm too seasoned, I would never make those kinds of mistakes. Like, I've seen even experienced private money lenders making some of these mistakes. So let's get to it. The first one, ignoring title and escrow. Now, I know, that's actually what we talked about last time, but really it is a habit because people do it once or twice and then they start doing it multiple times, or because they've loaned to this borrower before, they think that it's okay to use prior documentation for a new transaction. And unfortunately, that's just not necessarily the case, right? So if this is a whole new property, new numbers, new risks, then you need to do it all over again. And I hate to say it, but that's just how it is. And remember, this is a neutral third party, like your escrow company, your title company. They are not invested in this deal. They're gonna get paid either way, right? So they're gonna do the job. They're gonna make sure that you're good. They're gonna make sure that the borrower is good. And that's what's most important. The second thing here, now this one, I feel really passionate about. And I've never seen this go well. Actually, that's not true. I've seen it go well maybe once. But I advise you to please do not provide more than one loan to the same borrower at the same time, okay? This is a horrible mistake that I see. And it's very similar to like putting all your eggs in one basket, right? Now, I'm not saying necessarily giving your entire lending pot to one borrower at the same time. I'm literally saying you have a borrower who has a loan out and you decide to give them another loan. I'm talking about a loan with you. So you loan the borrower $10,000 for a fix and flip on 4th Street. And then the borrower comes and say, oh, I also have this other project going on 10th Street. Can I get a loan for that one too? No, bro, you haven't paid the first loan. You cannot get the second one. I see this all the time. And look, some of it is personal preference and depends on your risk tolerance. But truly, it's very avoidable and there's a ton of people to loan to. So why would you ever even need to do this, right? If something happens to that borrower, you know, if, you know, they lose their ability to work, or something happens to their team, or I don't know, they lose their job, whatever it is, like there's a ripple effect, right? Or not, yeah, a domino effect, a ripple effect. Like it doesn't usually just affect one project. It's usually down the line, you know? And if your money is tied up in multiple of their deals, then your money is impacted down the line. So I would just suggest not doing it, just one at a time. And they can always come back after they've repaid the first one. And that's how I operate. So the next one is not accounting for extra costs. So I'm talking about legal and administrative costs. I'll see often how it works is like the borrower would come and say like, I need funding for this project and this is how much I need, this is how long I need it, and this is the interest I'm willing to provide, right? Now, the lender may see that interest rate and go, oh, cool, that meets my minimum, right? Like, let's say their minimum is 8%, and they're like, oh, they're offering 8%. That's perfect, it meets my minimum. But sometimes what they fail to account for is, okay, I need to engage the title company. I need to engage the escrow company. These are all costs that need to be added to the loan. I need to maybe engage an attorney, whatever it is. Now, if it's unclear who's going to be absorbing those costs, and the lender ends up absorbing them, now you have dipped under that 8%, right? So you're not truly getting 8% if those costs are with you. Now, the better thing is to say, hey, borrower, you're offering 8%, but understand that there are certain costs that are going to be included with this. There's loan costs, and it's going to total around this amount. Like, is that going to work, or would you like that rolled into the loan? Like, do you want to pay that up front, or do you want to roll that into the loan, right? And increase the interest rate, or add a flat fee, or whatever it is, you know? I think that conversation needs to be had. Too often, they start with the proposal of the deal, they see the number they like, and then they skip to due diligence. But I'm like, even before that, I think the lender and the borrower need to be in the same place in terms of what does 8% mean and what are other costs associated with doing this transaction. So that's another mistake that I see. Another really bad habit is chasing yield without properly assessing risk, right? So the thing about private money lending is it can be extremely attractive, right? You see these interest rates, you can see these quick turnarounds, you ain't got to do no work, right? Is very appealing. But honestly, like if you think about banks and other financial institutions and the way that they let people use their money, like most people get denied. And I'm sorry, but that's just how it is, right? Like most people or companies looking to get a loan of a certain amount, like your acceptance rate should not be like 95%. That's something to think about. If your acceptance rate for a loan is 95%, you're probably not doing great due diligence. So the yield can be really attractive, but you really have to think about, use your imagination to try to think about what are all the things that could go wrong. Like just try to step outside of yourself and really examine the situation. Be shrewd, be critical, use AI if you need to. Like, am I asking the right questions? What else should I ask about this, you know, put some information in there, use hypotheticals, see if there's something you're missing, because there are risks associated with every type of transaction, especially if you're working remotely, right? Like if you're in Texas and you're doing a loan in Georgia, like you're not there, there's going to be additional risks associated with that transaction. So you should be asking questions, you should be asking for documentation, you should be really assessing the situation to see like, okay, what are the risks involved here? Do I have ways to mitigate against those risks? And of the ways that I have available to me, which ones will I be implementing to make sure that I'm protecting my money, okay? So those are things to think about. Like that habit of just always chasing the return and not really looking at the risk and doing proper due diligence can really kill your lending business, okay? Lastly, I would say not diversifying. Now, I know that might seem contradictory because I always say like 1 to 2 types of loans is a great place to start, 1 to 2 states. But if you think about the kind of market that we're in right now, and real estate has been a struggle for a lot of investors, and a lot of flippers, for instance, are struggling to offload their properties. If you had been doing different types of loans when the market shifted, you wouldn't be caught up in the market shift that is affecting fix and flippers, right? Or if you were in 2 markets instead of just one, and one market, went to crap, then you'd have another market to rely on. So an example of this is, let's say you only do fix and flip loans, right? And let's just say all across the country, the real estate market has sucked and your flippers are just really struggling to get rid of their inventory. Now, if you only do fix and flip loans, it's going to be a really hard season for you, right? Because all of your money is tied up in this market struggle. But let's say you were doing fix and flip loans, but you were also doing, small business loans, just general startup funds, micro loans, 5 to 10,000 for 6 to 8 months or something like that. Now, there's always going to be businesses in operation. I don't care what kind of market it is, but you're always going to have a client for that, right? Especially if you're in a niche field. Like I met someone recently who rents out ambulatory equipment to people who have struggles with like walking or whatever it is, right? That's always going to be a thing. People are always going to have trouble getting around because of some physical ailment. Now, if that person does those types of loans plus fix and flip loans, or they loan to people starting up those ambulatory type businesses and then they do fix and flip loans, they have another option, right? They're not bound by the fix and flip market and no longer able to do business because real estate sucks right now, you know? Not to say that real estate sucks right now, I'm just giving an example. Like if that were the case, then they'd be stuck with that type of loan. It's really the same with any type of investment. Like even in the stock market, you don't want to have all your stocks in tech, you know, or all your stocks in REITs or something like that. Like you want to be diversified so that you can protect yourself against huge changes in a particular industry, you know, or whatever market shifts are going on. So that's one of the habits that I see that can kill your lending deals and really slow down and honestly end or alter your lending business. Like if you're primarily focused on one thing and that thing doesn't work anymore, you're just stuck, or your money's stuck. It's just even worse. So let's just do a quick recap. So the 5 from today were, the 5 terrible habits were ignoring title and escrow altogether, just being like, I got it, or, you know, I'm gonna use my tools and they're gonna tell me, like, no, people are paid to do this for a reason. The next one was giving more than one loan to the same borrower at the same time. It's tempting, but don't do it. Another one was failing to account for the other costs that are part of a lending transaction. So administrative costs, you know, legal costs, title costs, escrow costs, depending on the type of loan, but just not really thinking about that when you're considering the borrower's offered interest rate or flat fee. Another one was chasing the yield without really thinking about the risk associated with that transaction. Like, this is not something you want to get in the habit of doing. You really want to approach every single transaction with skepticism, okay? I know, that sounds really cynical, but this is a business where you should be cynical. It's your money we're talking about. And then lastly, not diversifying. Now, I'm not saying go out and offer 50 types of loans in all 50 states. I'm saying don't pigeonhole yourself into one specific type of loan and only operate in one state. Like that is a great place to start, but once you get comfortable, consider adding a different type, right? Or consider operating in a different state. I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying consider it, okay? But because if you don't, I mean, you could be putting yourself in a position that is uncomfortable if things shift and that shift is not in your favor, okay? So avoid these 10 terrible habits. This is the end of that 2-part video. And just make sure that you properly educate yourself and prepare yourself to be in this space. It's a super rewarding space and it's a great space to be in, but you gotta do it right. You gotta do it compliantly. So see you there.